Hey everyone, how are you doing tonight? I cannot tell you how excited I am tonight because on the Atomic Arena, we have our first guest. And I don't know if this is going to be an interview or a conversation. A new friend, Kevin Anderson, is going to be hanging out with me. Do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, tweet us out, give us a share, tell your grandma how great we are, okay? We want to keep the music of our youth alive. Okay, we want to keep what we saw, and it seems like so many people have forgotten about, but not you. Okay, we're learning and we're meeting you, and we're thankful for you. So we're trying to just bring life back and just kind of visit the past. But I want to jump right into it. This is a segment that I've been doing called Cornerstone Stories. This is the ultimate episode here because I have somebody that has been to Cornerstone more than I have before I was there. And Kevin, I want you to jump into it. What was your first Cornerstone experience?
First Cornerstone was 1988. Me and my buddy Mike Gibson had just graduated high school. We were Christians. We loved Jesus. We were into the Christian rock scene. Reading Cornerstone magazine, saw an ad for the festival. Like, dude, we're so going to Cornerstone Festival. Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. So a few weeks later, we got some friends, threw a bunch of camping equipment into my buddy's Bronco and some stuff into my buddy's Chevelle. Off we go, heading to Chicago. Now, this is from Baltimore. So 800 some miles. I'm not really exactly sure what it was, but it was a good 14, 15, 16-hour drive. We get to Chicago, and this is how dumb and naive we were as teenagers in 1988. We get to Chicago. All right, well, where is this place? Oh, no, we'll see signs. Now, for you kids out there, we didn't have GPS back then or cell phones or anything like that. I just assumed we'd get to Chicago and there'd be a sign, Cornerstone, next left. We're driving around Chicago, outskirts downtown, for 5 hours. We can't find Cornerstone. We're pulling into churches. We're pulling into Christian bookstores. We're pulling into fire stations. We're pulling into every place you can think of to find where's Cornerstone. No one's ever heard of it. It's getting to the point, sun's starting to set, starting to get a little tired. We're thinking we're going to have to set up camp on the side of the interstate and sleep for the night and then go look in the morning. Well, we go to a bar. Have you ever heard of Cornerstone? Oh, yeah, we know Cornerstone. It's right down the street this way, turn left. The lady gave us directions and wrote directions on the napkin, sent us there. We pull up, sun's starting to set up the grill, cook some hot dogs, and we're like, yeah, this is it. A bar got us to Cornerstone.
That's amazing. That is amazing. No kidding. So now this is the pre-Bushnell era of Cornerstone, 1988. Right. That was the year that I first got into Christian metal when I saw Bride in Columbus, Ohio. But so you're going to, you're going to Cornerstone this year. Well, what was the lineup back then? Who was playing in 88?
Bloodgood we saw. Idle Cure, Margaret Becker, Yum. Rez, of course, every year. Vengeance Rising. Well, they were Vengeance back then.
Right.
One of the Paradox was the next year. Sacred Warrior,
which is a Chicago band. How many bands would you say were there, like when they started out?
I'm pretty sure it was just a 3-day festival then. I might have been 4. It wasn't the whole week. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, but we would have probably. It was pretty tight in the hair metal and punk category. Not a whole lot of stuff outside of that. well, I say that, and I said Idol, Kara, and Margaret Becker, which are neither punk nor metal, but um, it didn't have the big, huge variety that it did in the its heyday years.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the thing about Cornerstone is I think they did a real good job of being very diverse always. They had
Yeah,
all kinds of different stages. They had the underground stage, they had a coffee house stage, they had different tents with all kinds of things going on. It really was a family event. And
sure.
yeah, Kevin, have you ever described Cornerstone like this? It's like Woodstock. It's a Christian Woodstock, is
Yes,
what
sir.
when people ask, what is Cornerstone? What is Cornerstone? The best way to describe it is a Christian Woodstock.
Yeah. What I like to tell people, if you get bored at Cornerstone, it's your fault.
Yeah.
And, art, seminars, lectures, sports, music from hip hop to country to reggae to folk to pop to hardcore to dance. And, the place was ridiculous during the heyday years, the, late 90s into the early 2000s. There was just a ridiculous amount of stuff going on.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was amazing. And do you know why I thought, like, for a sec, I knew you were East Coast, but I had New Jersey on the mind because I was just watching I was watching a documentary about Danielson and the Danielson family, which is over there on the East Coast. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Um, they played Cornerstone a couple times. But anyway, so your first experience, 1988, Cornerstone. Now that was at the fairgrounds in Chicago.
Correct.
It took a while to get there, but you got there. So what was it like camping there? What were the facilities like?
That's going to sound really funny. I don't remember at all. I mean,
Okay.
if I was dumb enough to drive out there and not knowing where to go, I was probably dumb enough to drive out there and not bring shampoo and not bring a bar of soap and not bring it. Now, of course, I brought hairspray. Okay, that was how it was. I got to send you a picture from back then when I actually had the hair.
Okay.
Of course, I had the hairspray, but I don't think I was smart enough to bring toiletries.
And how old were you then? About 18 years old then?
18, yep.
Okay. You know what? I've been there and I've also witnessed the same thing where I've taken my kids when they're like 17, 18 years old. And at one time I took my kids up to Toledo to a concert, and my son brought his buddy with him, and we were staying at a hotel up there, and they all just jumped into the pool. Well, they didn't even bring any change of clothes for 2 days. And I'm like, who does this? Who does this? They were so excited about the music. I'm like, what are you guys gonna do? Now. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had the grill and we had food and stuff like that, and of course, sleeping bags and tents. You know, but that's not the kind of thing that sticks in your head from 40, 25, 30 years ago, whatever the math is on that.
Yeah. So
You
I'm
know,
imagining a lot of these bands didn't roll through Baltimore, Maryland on a regular basis. You go to Cornerstone, and this is probably your first time seeing a band like Vengeance Rising or some of these other heavy bands. Like, what did you think, when you saw these guys for the first time?
no, we actually had a scene here. Me and my buddy. Okay, I had a buddy. His actual name on his driver's license is Christian Rock. Christian David Rock.
I love it.
We were working at this church, and there was a little bit of a Christian rock scene. We started promoting concerts. We were teenagers. I wasn't even out of high school. We did odd jobs around the church and around the community and people in the church. We brought in Messiah Prophet.
Okay.
Made enough money on that show. We brought in White Cross. Made enough money on that show. We brought in Barren Cross. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So there was
So
a bit
this
of a
was
scene.
not your first rodeo. No kidding. All right. And you brought him into the church there, the church that you went to in Maryland?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's amazing that a church would even allow that, just because of the controversy that was going on back then. So the pastor and the church were okay with Christian rock. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Well, we led by example. You know, we were involved in the church. We were attending Bible studies. We were, you know, active in the youth group and things like that. So
Okay. Very good. Very good.
they saw the fruit kind of
Yeah.
thing. But
You know, well,
what was so different about going to Cornerstone from here, you know, I remember we pulled into the fairgrounds, and one of the first things I saw was this glammed up pretty boy with the makeup and the bracelets sitting down reading the Bible with a punk rocker. I'm like,
yeah.
wow.
Unity, unity. And that, I mean, that's something that I witnessed many times at Cornerstone, was just the diversity and the love and the
Yeah,
unity,
yeah,
and of course, um, one time they used the Crucified song for one of their Cornerstone T-shirts, "United by Christ." That, of course, that's our common denominator, and people come for all kinds of different kinds of music, and just art and love. But yeah, it was an amazing atmosphere there on the farm. Of
absolutely.
course, I didn't show up until '92 in the middle of the cornfield, but I want to hear about. So you guys went there. Anything else about '88 that sticks out to you?
I had hair.
Yeah, there. You remember that? No
Yeah,
kidding.
I just remember just sitting there, feeling the atmosphere, feeling the vibe, feeling the spirit, feeling the love, like realizing that this ain't normal.
Hmm.
This is something totally unique. And I'm like, I've got to do this next year, and I got to do this for the rest of my life. I not quite, but you know, I got pretty close to it.
Yeah, yeah. So, man, that's a long trip. I mean, our ride from where I'm at in Ohio was right around 8 or 9 hours to Bushnell, and that was a long trip. Sometimes we would leave at midnight and get there first thing in the morning, or sometimes we'd leave in the afternoon. And just with all the stops we had to make, because we had a caravan of people going out there, like sometimes 3 or 4 cars, and you had to stop. And once you stop, everybody's got to go to the restroom. It takes forever, and eating and all that. But it took a long time to get there, but not as long as what you had to go. So
Columbus was the halfway point.
yeah, yeah,
I had a very, very close friend that lived in Columbus, and we'd always stop and visit her, sometimes pick her up on the way. And but Columbus was the halfway point.
okay, right, right. And I lived just an hour north of Columbus, in a town called Mansfield. So,
Heard of it.
so okay. Well, how about? And I want to know about this stuff, because this is before I could go. What about 1989? You went the next year too.
Yeah, '89 was a very unique year for me. Um, got a lot after we got back from the first one. Everyone heard the hype, heard how incredible it was. I had a lot of friends wanting to go, so we're pooling our funds. We're like, dude, let's rent an RV. Yeah, let's rent an RV. That'll be awesome. So called the RV rental place, and they're like, oh yeah, we'll hook you up with this one. Blah blah blah. You know, blah blah blah. So we're set. We got the RV booked. We called the night before to confirm the reservation. And the guy's like, well, you rented our 16-foot one, right? I'm like, yeah. Well, that one was involved in an accident. We're going to have to give you the next one on the lot. That's our 32-foot one. All right.
I love getting upgraded.
Yeah, we're going to give it to you for the same price. All right. By the way, do you have someone who's 25 or older coming to rent this vehicle? Oh no, sir. I'm just 19. You can't rent this if you're 19. Do you have anyone going who's 25 or older? No, I don't. So my dad sees how dejected I am. He makes a couple phone calls. All right, Kev, I got off work for the week. Let's go pick up that RV. And my
Wow.
dad drove us to Cornerstone. His parents live in Minnesota, not too far away. He dropped us off at Cornerstone, got out, walked to the nearest bus station, which apparently was a half a day's walk away. Took the bus up to go visit his family. Now, I didn't know he did any of that. Again, dumb, naive teenager. Then, spends the week with his family, goes to the bus station, walks back another half day walking to get to Grace Lake Fairgrounds.
Before the days of Uber. Wow. Now that is an amazing dad story. I wasn't expecting that. That's super cool.
Yep.
Man, take the week off of work, take the time off of work, and then rent the RV and get you guys there. That is amazing. Wow, how supportive. And dad saves the day. That's awesome. That's awesome, Kevin.
Yeah. And there was 12, 13 loud, obnoxious, heavy metal loving teenagers in this RV. And that had to have been like real obnoxious for him to drive that whole entire way with us, master of the metal.
So let me ask you this, and not that we care about appearances, but when you get into metal, your appearance changes, right? I mean, that's a thing that happens. And I mean, a lot of times we kind of adapt the leather jackets or the jean jackets or whatever. Is that something that you went through, or are those, what am I trying to say? Was that kind of your guys' wardrobe?
Well, I graduated from a Christian school, so I had to have short hair up until June of '88 when I graduated. After that, no more barber for this guy. So I had short hair, shortish hair in '88. By the time '89 got, it was shoulder length and whatnot. The day after I graduated, I got my first ear pierce. So, but yeah,
Right.
The torn up shirts and the jeans with tears in them and stacking up the bracelets. Some things never change.
Yeah, no kidding. I had so many holes in my pants that they put me in what's called ISS, in school suspension, because they already warned me to not do that anymore. So I got in trouble and I went into they put me in there, and I was like, I don't want to be in here all day. So I had a bracelet that was made out of safety pins, and I pinned up the holes in my pants, and I said, hey, can I come out now? I pinned up these holes here, and that way I'm not so offensive to everybody. And they actually let me out and let me go back to class. So true story. But yeah, no kidding. And yeah, same thing. I was a Christian, but I was the one getting in trouble. We were the, if you want to say the most radical, or we had the most crazy outfits in our school. So who was playing in 1989? Do you remember that you really wanted to see?
'89 had there was the new band showcase. Had two bands that I was really, really a big fan of. One of them was from San Antonio, Texas, a band called Paradox. Okay. And the other was this band from LA called Electric. And they were like a Christian version of Poison, and really, really talented band. The bass player from Electric ended up being the bass player for Michael Sweet's band, Tracy Ferry.
Okay. I did not know that. So now that's not the guy. I'm trying to think here. He's not the bass player for Striper now. No, I'm getting that mixed up.
Yeah. That guy's from
Electric?
Yeah, not Electric. Steelheart.
Steelheart. Okay. Got you. I used to live in Nashville for almost 2 years, and my roommate was a van driver or a bus driver on a Michael Sweet tour when Michael Sweet took out a couple bands. and you say he was the bass player for Michael Sweetband. My roommate probably met him back then. So the guy from Electric. So okay, all right. So folks, thanks for tuning in. We're talking to Kevin here, and this is Cornerstone Stories, the all access version of the show. Man, I'm so excited to have a real live person here, somebody that's been to Cornerstone. And before the show started, Kevin and I were saying, how many times did we pass each other on the dusty road? Okay. How many times did we stand at the same concert? All right. Let's try to figure that out. And you have a lot of things to say, but so I went there in 1992, was my first year. And I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you, Kevin. We barely got the car in park, and we pulled up and we just ran out to the nearest mosh pit, which was a band I think called Raspberry Jam.
I remember the name.
Yeah, and they were there from California, and we were so tired because we were up all night driving, but it was so hot there, and it was hard to sleep in the heat once we got our tent up, and the Crucified was that night. Okay. And I think that might have been, well, it wasn't their last time, one of their last times that they played. But can you remember any now out at the out on the farm out there in Bushnell, Illinois? What sticks out to you as shows that you went to? Of course, you mentioned Bride before the show. That was a 93 show. You had a couple years you didn't make it, 90 and 91, right?
No, 90 is the only year I missed.
90. Okay. So, and then what sticks out to you? Let me ask you, in the 90s years.
I mean, they all really blur together. So if you ask me which year is which, I'm not going to be able to tell you.
I know what that's like.
Without fail, one of the best memories was Believer with the orchestra.
I missed that year. I wish I could have seen it. Tell us about that, because
it's on YouTube.
Okay. That band, okay, obviously when they came out with the orchestra with Sanity Obscure, okay, and they did the song Day of Wrath, okay, it was groundbreaking. Okay.
So
it was groundbreaking for metal in all areas, Christian or secular. Okay. These guys were doing new things. So what was that like when you saw the orchestra there? Tell us about that.
Well, I had already had the album and played it to death, loved it, and I just thought it was going to be real complex. I was involved in audio at the time. I had working semi-professionally as a sound man, so I knew that was going to be quite an undertaking for the sound company, and it was fantastic. All the strings were in there, the vocals were in there. It was just an incredible show.
Now, did they have the female singer there too? That was okay.
Yeah. Yes, and even some of the orchestra was all wearing their tuxedos, but they had like spike wristbands and stuff like that, and it was.
So, where were you at in the crowd? Were you up close, or how far back were you?
I believe, I could be wrong on this. I believe it was main stage, and I think I was sitting up on the grassy hill.
Okay.
I wasn't into crowds. I didn't get into the sardining of people and stuff like that. I usually just kind of like, brown nose my way with the sound company, and I'd go stand up by the monitor console or stand out at the front of house console, get me out of the people kind of thing.
No kidding. It's when you talk about things blurring together in your memory. Last week, I was researching that video on Bride and Dale Thompson jumping off of that. And I thought, I want to tell this story. I remember it, and we were kind of freaked out about it. And I was looking at two different videos, and I couldn't find the spot where he jumped off. Finally, I found the spot, and then I saw him. He was on the right side when you're looking at the stage. And I said, that's not the way I remember it. I'm like,
I could have sworn he jumped off the left.
Yeah. And what he did is he jumped off the right first, then he went over to the left and he climbed up higher, then he jumped off. So
I didn't remember it like that.
yeah, well, I know, and I didn't either. So, but again, I watched the video last week, and I was like, oh, okay, okay. I knew that he went to the left, but I couldn't remember that he went to the right first.
Yeah,
So, but yeah.
I was
So,
at
were
that
you
show.
there at that concert?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So, I've already covered it, but do you remember that? When he jumped off there, that was kind of high. What'd you think about that?
Oh, I thought, well, guess there's an ambulance around here somewhere.
Yeah, we now for that concert, we were all the way up on the hill, but you could still see it pretty good. I mean, he
Yeah,
looked like an ant down there, but I mean, from all the way up there, you're like, whoa, it looked like he was up 2 stories. He wasn't up,
yeah.
that high, but from as far back as we were, we're like, whoa, I can't believe. And
That
then he just,
scaffolding was up there.
yeah,
That was some high up scaffolding.
yeah, yeah. And whew, to trust those guys to catch you, but he did, man. And I don't know if you saw, but Dale commented on the video, and he said the second drop was unnerving, just because he kind of timed it out, and it was like probably like, okay, when am I going to land here? When are they going to catch me? Because he was up so high. But
That's rock and roll. That's
yeah,
rock
no
and roll.
kidding. So back in '92. Bride was at the main stage, and well, no. Well, I'm thinking '93 is when that happened. But when I went in '92, one of the bands that I really wanted to see was a band called Mad at the World. Did you ever see them, or do you know about them?
I know the name, but they never quite caught my fancy.
Never caught. Yeah, never. Well, I can tell, Kevin, you're definitely a fan of the hard music. So
I don't know. I've mentioned Iona. I've mentioned
you did say
Whiteheart. I've
Iona,
mentioned
and you did say
VOL.
Vigilantes of Love. So um well, I want to try and figure out some other concerts that we have probably. Now, let me ask you this: when you saw Bride, where were you at in the crowd?
Probably standing by the sound booth. That's where I always stood because the sound man, what he's hearing, you want to hear what he's hearing. So it's called like Power Alley. You stand right in front of the sound booth, and that's going to be your prime spot to stand.
Okay, okay. And had Bride ever made it out to Baltimore, Maryland, to play?
Yes.
Okay,
That church I was talking about, they did a show there, and at one point in time, I had my own business doing sound, and I was lucky enough to do sound for Bride for a show.
okay. Oh wow, wow.
Super, super nice guys, very kind, very very kind.
Yeah, accommodating.
Thank you.
You're pulling the Tom. That's what I do all the time. Bride being from Kentucky, we were in Ohio. There were a lot of places to play in Ohio, so we got to see him a lot. Sometimes, in a few months, we would see him several times. But yeah, super nice guys. Those guys were legit, and they cared about people, So they were definitely about the ministry. No kidding. No kidding.
That's another thing about Cornerstone that was so neat is like the bands would show up first day of the fest and then walk around all day.
Oh yeah,
Hang
yeah.
out at the t-shirt table, and they were so available to the fans, and that's something you're just not used to in rock and roll.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. And then of course they had a food court out there. You go and everybody's eating together, and you had access. Uh, you know, my favorite place to go was the main event hall besides going to a concert. And you just back then, no real, no internet, so you couldn't order a t-shirt off a line or anything.
Yeah.
So you might have got like a little thing that you fill out in a CD or a tape back then, but doing mail order for t-shirts and stuff was not like what it was today. You sent your money,
Yeah.
you sent a money order or a check in the mail, and then you wait 2 months, and then you might get a t-shirt. I've sent some stuff out, and it didn't and it never showed up. As a matter of fact, one time I tracked down Jimmy Brown from Deliverance, And I was like, hey, dude, I never got my t-shirt. And he's like, here, take a hat. So he's like, he said, not my fault. You know, some people screwed us over, but here, take a hat. So,
Can you imagine? Here's something to contemplate. Well, you think about this, and we'll talk about it next time we get together here. Contemplate the economy of Cornerstone.
mm-hmm.
Think if every person at Cornerstone bought one, which is a ridiculously small number, if every person at Cornerstone bought one CD, 17,000 people,
Yeah.
one CD, let's just say $10 a piece, which is, a cheap CD.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you put me on the spot for my math, but that's a lot.
Yeah. The economy of that event rivaled many countries.
Mm-hmm. And people spent, on average, I would say a lot more than buying one CD. People saved up money to go there. I know we did because we knew that we had access to stuff that we couldn't get. I wanted something from Cornerstone, a t-shirt or something from a band that nobody in my town had.
Yeah. Well, and then they had like Rad Rockers that held all the rare, hard to find. Like there was only 20 of these CDs made, and they got one, and they'll sell it to you for $50, and you got to get your Cornerstone T-shirt. And
oh yeah,
but no yeah, I mean, it wasn't unusual for me to spend a few $100s just on CDs that week.
Yeah. Yep. Well, and I've seen people just come back with armfuls of tapes first, then the CDs, and I didn't get to go in 1991. That was the year I graduated, and a friend of mine went, and man, I wanted to go so bad, Kevin, but I didn't have the money. I couldn't go, and I didn't have a ride out there, and he came back and told me about it. And I said, next year we're going. I'm not going to miss it for the world. And we just started going after that.
Yeah. One of these days I'll share the story about my last Cornerstone. It'll pretty much make you cry, but
well, I'm trying to figure out what other concerts we might have rubbed elbows at, Kevin. So tell me some other bands that you saw, or some events that you saw at Cornerstone. I know you saw Rez, and I've seen them a few times there. The years do kind of blur together, but anything else that stands out?
Every time Iona played, I was there. Sixpence None the Richer. I was at the Rich Mullins. I was also at the Rich Mullins tribute. What was your stuff? Are you into the heavier stuff?
I was into the heavy stuff, but I loved bands like Tourniquet. I loved bands. Of course, I never saw Barren Cross there, but we had just seen Tourniquet at the King's Place before they played at Cornerstone, and I never saw Sacred Warrior play there. Of course, Bride they were there almost every year. The Crucified. We were into a lot of hardcore punk stuff. I had some friends in a band called 6 Feet Deep. So
6 Feet Deep.
Yeah.
One of the years they were out there, I was hanging out with the sound guy, and he let me mix monitors for 6 Feet Deep.
Okay. And
here's a memory for you.
Okay. Mortal. Yes. I loved Mortal. I don't know which year they played, but I love that band.
They played a few years, and the one that was really neat was it was one of the many years that had a lot of storms, a lot of lightning, a lot of thunder, and he was like last day or second to last day or something, and he's like, look, this has been a scary week. A lot of crazy stuff has happened. Let's take some time and get on our knees and let's pray to God and let's thank God for our safety. And he's like, don't think I'm too good. I'm going to climb down off the stage and I'm going to kneel down in this mud with you guys. And sure enough, we jumped down, you heard squish and, kneeling in the mud, and we all prayed together, and he got back up and knees were covered in mud and did a few more songs. And,
No kidding. Wow. I saw Mortal at the King's Place in Columbus, Ohio, and I was so impressed by their devotion and by the words they said, and it just stuck with me. And it was those guys were incredible and made two incredible albums. which we're going to talk about on here on the Atomic Arena. There's a lot of songs that we want to share and talk about when it comes to Mortal. This blew me away. So yeah, no kidding. I saw Mortal. I'll tell you a band that I really liked. Tell me if you remember the band Dig Zeus.
I remember thinking it's a cool name.
Well, the thing about Cornerstone is there's so many bands and there's so many flavors. You know, they had a dance tent that would start at midnight and go on, and I couldn't tell you one thing that happened there, but a lot of my friends would go to that and dance all night long and be so tired the next day. You had your Encore 1, your Encore 2, you had your underground stage, you had the coffee house stage. Okay, I remember they had the Larry Howard Blues Jam at one point.
I was out of that.
And
until all hours.
Yeah, bands like the 77s and Kevin, so many bands, so many
stages. And in the heyday when I was really liking a lot of what was out there, you'd look at the schedule and you'd be like, I can't see this band and that band because one's at this end of the fairgrounds, the other's at that end of the fairgrounds.
You know what? I know. And I remember many times I had a conflict when there was a band at main stage, and then there was also a band up there by the merch tents and stuff playing in one of those stages. I'm like, man, how am I going to make that distance? And how can I be at both places at one time? Sometimes if you had an Encore 1 and an Encore 2, you could go back and forth.
Yeah.
And you could catch a little bit of both sets. So yeah. But it was hard to catch everything and a lot of conflicts.
Yeah, and then there's the ever popular, you're walking from one to the other, you really don't have any place to be, and who's that? They sound good, and you go in and you check out some new band you've never heard before, and you end up being a fan.
Yeah.
Just walking past the tent.
Well, that's happened many, many times. Can you think of a band that's happened to for you?
Sort of. Jennifer Knapp.
Okay.
I had heard her CDs and just thought of little too polished, a little too overproduced, blah, blah, blah. And I was walking by her tent one night. It was just her and an acoustic. And so much better than what she was putting on the CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
No kidding. Fantastic. No kidding.
One of the ones that I had discovered out there, and I just recently talked about this on the Facebook Cornerstone Memories page, was Chasing Furies.
Okay.
There was all this talk all week long. Kev, you got to go see this band Chasing Furies. They're going to be like the next Jars of Clay. You got to go see them. You got to go see them. Hearing it from strangers, hearing it from people I knew, hear it from sound companies, blah, blah, blah. Holy moly, that was a good set. Oh, man, that band was fantastic.
No kidding. No kidding. I don't know. Are you familiar with the I forgot the name of the band. Love is Against the Grain. Do you remember that band that had that album?
Altar Boys.
Well, is that it? No. It was on 5 Minute Walk Records, and somebody watching this is going to be screaming out the name of the band. I can't remember. They had a song called Hitler's Girlfriend. I'm remembering everything but the band. I can't remember.
I'm not going to help you at all on this one.
Anyway, I found their CD and I bought it at Rad Rockers. It's going to come to me in a minute, and I never listened to it until years later. And then I listened to it, and it was amazing. The name of the album is Love is Against the Grain, and Altar Boys had a similar sounding. They had Against the Grain, which I love the Altar Boys too. So, but I am so embarrassed I cannot remember the name of that. If I come up with the name of it, then you're going to know what I'm talking about. But it was on 5 Minute Walk Records. Anyway, so one of the things, and let me ask you if you remember this, Kevin. Um, there was so much music going on at Cornerstone, but then there were a few years where people started doing what they call generator shows. So it's almost like, okay, there's not enough going on here, and people at their campsites were putting on generator shows, and crowds and crowds of people were showing up, and they had to put a stop to it because nobody was going to the actual scheduled events. Do you remember that going on?
The generator stages were just starting as I was heading out. I think I might have did it for like 2 years when they were doing the gen stages, and that is part of the reason why I stopped going.
Okay, yeah. Um, they I don't know what they did, but they had to find a way to regulate that, and it became a real problem there, where people were just like setting up stages right in their own campsite. It was happening all the time. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And you couldn't walk across, anywhere without one popping up. Let me ask you this, Kevin. Did you have speaking of the Bushnell years, did you have like a regular place that you guys like to camp at?
We had two different places. The first one, way back behind Encore One, right up against the back edge of the trees. So if I look that way from my tent, I saw the trees. If I looked this way, I saw Encore One and Encore Two.
Okay.
So
Well, it's funny you should say that. That's exactly right around the area where I used to camp at first. We started over there, and the very first year back in 1992, we went there. That's where we camped at. And
I might have still been there. I might
yeah,
have still been there. I don't think I moved out of there until maybe 95 or 96.
okay.
Then we moved up. That road that connects right by the not the big lake, but the lake that was up by the first aid station and
Uh-huh.
the store and all that. There, that little road that connected the main road to the merch tent.
Yeah.
That's where we camped. We'd wedge ourselves right behind the first aid trailer and the lake, and that was our home. And it was amazing for people watching because it was right on the road.
Right.
I loved it there.
Right. We were over there by that Encore One for a few years, and then I somehow I got stuck right on that corner where when you first come into when you're first driving into Cornerstone and you turn right down the road towards the merch tent.
Yep, right there.
I was right on that corner for probably a couple years, and then we were able to get back.
Me, man.
What's that?
And so you're following me.
Yeah. And we were right there by the underground and the tent, the underground tent and the skate ramp. We did that once or twice, and then where the HM stage ended up, we really liked that area back there because there was a shade there, and you could sleep longer because when the sun came up, your tent was shaded.
Smart.
So. Because when you're at Cornerstone in July in Illinois, in a cornfield, and the sun comes up, you're not sleeping long because you're just laying there sweating, right?
Yeah. How are we looking on the clock? Can I get a story in?
Yeah, we're good, man. Yeah.
All right. Here's my story about not sleeping, and this is probably my favorite Cornerstone story. We drove through the night to get there. So we usually get there right around the time the sun's coming up. So we set up, blah, blah, blah. Set up, go inside the tent, try and get a couple hours sleep before it turns into a sauna. I'm in there, half asleep, half awake, and I hear, I can unzip my flap and look out there, and dang punk kids zip up the flap. Zip down the flap again, and I see this car at the bottom of the hill start up and put the pedal to the metal and just spinning away. And it took a couple seconds, and I realized that car had just rolled down a hill on top of a tent with kids in it.
Oh, wow.
So I start shaking all my friends like, guys, 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 we got to help. And we go sprinting out of the tent in our underwears and all that. By the time we get down there, there's about 8 or 10 people gathered around the car trying to push. And I start yelling, you can't push it. We got to lift it. We got to lift it. So everyone gathered around the car and like, 1, 2, 3, lift. Pick this car up in the air. Now we're holding it and everyone's looking at each other. And I'm like, grab the kids, grab the kids. And this girl reaches in, grabs the tent, yanks the tent out. We set the car down. She unzips the tent. And these 2 kids kind of flop out like, what just happened to us? Set the car down. Everyone kind of looks at each other. I'm going back to bed. And everyone wandered off, and that was that. Took the kid. Apparently they took the kids to the hospital to get them checked out. Blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
yeah.
Couple burns from the exhaust of the car, but unhurt.
Wow. Thank God. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy.
I didn't sleep much after that.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, and that thank God those kids didn't get hurt, but yeah, what a way to wake up or start your day there, your first day there at Cornerstone. You remember what year that was?
That would have been definitely sometime in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah. There's been some accidents and some things happen at Cornerstone. I remember one year they threw a CD up in the air and it came down and hit a girl in the eye and she lost her sight.
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, that is so tragic that this girl lost sight in that eye over something as trivial as a concert, and there's nobody did anything wrong. It was just an accident. It could have happened anywhere. You could have looked up and saw a tree branch hit you, but it was just like, man, to say that was a bummer is not really doing it justice,
Well, someone did drown and die at the lake one year.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, that's the one and only Cornerstone fatality.
Yeah. And I remember people getting, just jumped on in concerts. And one time I was at a POD concert and a guy got his bell rung.
POD?
Yeah. And but just to mention, the girl that got her, that lost sight in the eye, I did not know her personally, but I just remember hearing people talk about her and her attitude about what happened. And she was just like, you know what? All glory to God, all praise to God. God could use me he used me with 2 eyes. He can use me with 1 eye. I would love to talk to that girl and know where she's at right now and who she is. I just, as we're on this subject, Kevin, I remember one time I was at a POD concert in Chicago, and I met them and I got to go on tour with them a couple times. So those guys were got to be good friends. But we were up in Chicago, and it was POD, Blindside, and Project 86. And I used to sell T-shirts of my own. They were anti-racist shirts, and POD would let me go with them. So I was loading my car up, and I saw out of the corner of my eye, and somebody even listening to this will know about this, but I saw what I thought was like a trash can in the middle of the road. It was a really busy road. And the reason I thought it was a trash can was because I saw one sitting by the side of the road, and then I saw a car hit it. I thought one of the kids from the concert dragged a trash can out in the middle of the road as a joke. And it wasn't a trash can. It was a person. And I saw him flying through the air.
Holy moly.
Yeah. And then what happened was people went back inside of the venue there, and they began praying for this person. Sonny was the first one over there to the person that got hit by the car, and he laid hands on him and, began praying for him. And he said he wasn't the person wasn't moving or breathing or anything. This was the story, and Sonny just went and, and prayed for him. And I don't know what happened, but I heard he got hurt pretty bad, but I think the person lived. So, yeah. yeah, tragic things happening around, the concerts and the festivals and stuff. But
But that's the thing. I mean, no matter what was going on at Cornerstone, you didn't have to look far to find someone to pray with you or pray for you. You
yeah,
know,
that's true.
you stub your toe on the rock heading down to the beach, or your girlfriend dumps you, or you're just dealing with stuff. You
Yeah,
know, there was always people there to pray for you.
yeah.
They didn't
Another
have to
band
look toward
that I
you.
really like, Kevin, is Ballydows. You familiar with them?
I do remember the name.
Okay, okay. And they came out of the obviously some of the members of the band Crash Dog went on to form that band, but I'll just never forget their set at the main stage. And just the people dancing. I was like, even the singer was like, talking about this is what heaven's gonna look like. We're all gonna be dancing. And Cornerstone, Kevin, it really touched my heart in those years. And it just meant so much to me. I took we took our kids, and when they were real young, and my son, my oldest son is 20, he's gonna be 27 this year, but he's got some great years of going to Cornerstone. And I remember him crying when we had to leave. He's like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
He had made friends there, and they would just take off and go all day long. And
You can do it back then.
yeah, yeah, you really could. So before we sign off here, uh, I want to put you on the spot. Tell me another, just really something that pops into your head, Kevin. Just a really fond memory or a good memory of Cornerstone.
There's just so many of them. Fond, just laying on that grassy hill at night, staring up at the stars, just feeling the warmth of the air, feeling, the presence of God, the presence of people who love God, the presence of people who love you, just listening to the music, feeling it envelop you. That grassy hill, you know, what I wouldn't give right now to lay on that grassy hill just one more time, staring up at the stars. Just not right now because it's probably pretty cold up there.
It's a little bit cold, yeah. No kidding. It's a little bit cold there at Cornerstone.
And
So
my
yeah,
birthday, oddly enough, is on July 4th. But that Cornerstone was pretty much always on the 4th. So
right.
I always had a birthday out there. So that made it
Okay.
extra special.
Yeah, and every year around the 4th, that's when Cornerstone was. So no kidding. Now, let me ask you this real quick. Like during the heyday, when did you guys get there? Because we would always get there a day early. And then they started having the tooth and nail day the day early. So we had to come a day early before that.
Yep.
So when did you guys get there?
We were the exact same thing.
Yeah.
You get there the day before,
Yeah.
because otherwise, you can't find a place to set up your tent, and you're too much in a hurry to get set up and get off to the first show, and it was a long week, and we always, like I said, we left usually around dinner time, and then drove through the night. So by the time we got there, the sun was coming up. You can see to set your tent up and stuff like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was always the day before,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was told that they weren't letting people in, but somehow I got in every year. I don't know how I did that. I didn't do anything sneaky, honest to God, but
Yeah.
I was never stopped at the gate. I never waited in line to get to Cornerstone.
Well, you never really, because we got stuck in that line, like the entrance line, quite a few times. You pull up maybe in the middle of the night or right as they're, it might have just been a long line, but we had to kind of wait, to be able to get in there. And then we just pulled our cars off the side of the road, and some people were playing hacky sack and throwing a football or a frisbee, and they would run into the cornfield to use the restroom. And
Yeah. Were you in the hacky sack record setting hacky thing?
I was not. I was not. I didn't know about that. What was that?
I don't know what year it was, but someone in Japuza decided they were going to set the world record for the largest hacky sack circle,
Okay.
and they talked about it all week long, and people just gathered in, and I walked up and watched it bounce around a couple times, and it bounced by me. I hit it once. I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Well, and I did tell you, or I did share with the listeners, of course, the musical chairs in the mud, which I'm pretty sure was 1993. It was when that I narrowed that down when that happened. So, and that was man, that was a wet, crazy
Yeah.
year.
Oh man, so muddy.
I remember, Kevin, we were on the hill there at main stage, and somebody was walking down kind of like where the corner is, okay? And the
Yeah.
rain would go down in there, and
There
he
was
was
that little
walking in
strip
there.
there with the sliding board.
Yeah. And he stepped in the mud and he pulled his foot out, and there was no shoe on it. So everybody was watching him, and he had to dig in the mud, and he couldn't find his shoe.
Oh no.
And everybody was like, oh my gosh. And he was really digging in that mud for like 5 minutes, and everybody's waiting in anticipation. Finally, he came up with a shoe, and everybody cheered him. They're like, yay. So, yeah, that was crazy. Man, I see that you're wearing a King's X shirt there. And one of my favorite albums, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska. Of course, King's X never played Cornerstone. Wish they would have, but amazing band.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Back in the day, I sent Doug Pinnick a fan letter. Doug, King's X is the best, blah, blah, blah. Will you ever play Cornerstone? And he actually responded. He said, I'd love to play Cornerstone, but it will probably never happen. I might attend one day. The fellowship would be a real treat.
Wow.
He used the word fellowship,
That's awesome that he responded.
Yeah, and he used the word fellowship, which proves he's a Christian, because only Christians use that word.
Yeah. So, no kidding. And yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with the Galactic Cowboys if you're a King's X fan.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I love those bands, and I have not gotten the new Galactic Cowboys yet, but it's on my list. So, I heard it's like the old days. That's why I'm interested in it.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah. Kevin, I cannot tell you how much it means to me that you would come on and talk to me and share these memories. I think this is what I think. I don't think we're done here. I think we got some more to talk about.
I got 2 more good stories.
Okay. You got more good stories. I've got a few more good stories too. And I want to have you back on in the future, and let's do this again. And folks, thank you for hanging out with Kevin and I as we just kind of figure out where we met. I mean, I'm sure that there's times we've been standing in line for food or at the merch tables or in a concert, and it's so amazing just to know. I've met so many people, Kevin, that that I didn't even know were interested in music. And I'll say something about Cornerstone. They're like, "Oh yeah, I was there that year," and I'm thinking I met him for the first time, but no, actually, we were in Bushnell, Illinois years ago.
Yeah.
But hey, God bless you, brother. Thank you for hanging out with me, and thanks to everybody for subscribing and for giving us a thumbs up. And hey, we want to hear your comments. In your comments, what is your Cornerstone memory? Do you remember any of the things that Kevin and I were talking about tonight? Just let us know. Maybe you can set the story straight for anything that we got wrong. And
which is probably a lot.
Yeah. And you can give us some ideas for what we'll talk about next or what we'll remember next. The years he was there, the years that I was there. So anyway, folks, signing off for now, but we'll catch you next time. All righty. Bye-bye.